Hello, Raleigh. This is citizen reporter Robert Courts coming to you from the Your Backyard Raleigh News Network. And I am tickled today to have my second video following up with the council members from their city council retreat in February. And I would like to start today with Council Member Silver. Mr. Silver, thank you for joining us. I appreciate you spending some time. Could you start the conversation by reflecting upon what happened in the retreat and the discussion around advisory boards and commissions?
Well, first, Robert, thank you for having me on, and I'm delighted to be here with my colleagues. As our first retreat, my first retreat, it was very helpful to really bond with my fellow council members and the mayor just to get kind of an overview of some of the critical priorities for the city and really just to understand how we foster working relationship. One of the items that we talked about was our advisory boards. And so we had basically an overview. I believe we have more than 30. And some of the concerns we're expressing is we're seeing some that we're not reaching quorum. We struggle at some times of getting volunteers to serve on these important boards and commissions. And then we looked over time. Have we done an assessment to find out, can some of these boards and commissions be consolidated? And so it was a very lively discussion, which I felt we told staff to give us some direction. I'm sure some are legacy boards and commissions that have been around for some 30, 40 years. And is there an opportunity to merge them since our needs over time has changed? So from my perspective, it was a very good conversation. Everybody got a chance to weigh in. And I felt we gave staff proper direction. There are certain boards and commissions statutorily we cannot touch, but a lot of those responded to trends at the time. And the question is going forward, what do we need to do? So I found the conversation helpful, and collectively the council gave staff the direction to start looking at what they need to do moving forward to address some of the key concerns we're seeing on our boards and commissions. But having over 30 is quite a lot. But we have a very engaged citizenry, and we want to make sure they have an opportunity to weigh in on important topics.
Certainly more than a handful. Councilmember Harrison, would you like to add anything?
Yeah, I just want to say that our volunteers, those are residents who serve on these boards and commissions. They play a critical role in providing recommendations on policy and education, just getting the word out about issues that are facing the city. I serve as the liaison, for example, to Raleigh's Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Commission, and that group just does great work trying to add bike lanes and sidewalks, make it safe for people to get around with disabilities. And so it's really, important that our boards are well functioning, that they have the support they need from council. I just was speaking with the Hispanic and Immigrant Affairs Board, their co-chairs. They've had some issues meeting quorum, and so they would really like to see opportunities for hybrid meetings, so virtual meetings. And we have had some restrictions in the past on how these boards meet. And I think if we can, make those a little bit less restrictive, we would also see, better attendance.
Councilmember Patton?
Sure, yeah, just to follow along with what my colleague said, some of these boards, all these boards have evolved over time. Certainly some of them have very clear and prescriptive ways of interacting with city policy and city procedure, like our planning commission is very sort of tightly regulated. And then others like Hispanic and Immigrant Affairs Board or the Parks Board have different roles. And so this, to me, was the beginning of a much longer conversation that will involve assessing whether all our advisory councils are giving us advice in the way that we charged them to do, or if some have sort of meandered away from their original directive. And so I think the next step that the public will hear about is that we've asked our staff to gather the charters and bylaws for all of these commissions of the council so that we can compare them side by side and see who is doing unique work and who might be doing duplicative work. We really value the engagement of all these residents, but we want to make sure that we're using their time well and that they're providing us the feedback that we so desperately want.
Well, as you've all three mentioned, the retreat is such a valuable opportunity for you guys to have a broad discussion. And it's not about all agreeing, but it's a chance for you all to share your opinions. And as a citizen and being able to watch that, it is really a great exercise. So very thankful that y'all are all willing and that we get that opportunity. I'm going to start with Councilmember Harrison on the next topic. Councilmember Harrison, you also had a very in-depth conversation on the smart growth and annexation of our city and what's going on. Would you please share some of your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so we have a lot of areas that are currently, not within the city's boundaries. So they might be part of the ETJ, so extraterritorial jurisdictions. I have some of those areas just south of my district in the Swift Creek watershed, for example. These are areas that, they might currently be governed by Wake County rules for land use. So they tend to be less dense. Oftentimes, there's farmland, maybe even forested land out there. And as new developments are proposed, oftentimes they want to be annexed into the city. So being annexed into the city means they're going to get, city water. They're going to get access to our public safety personnel and resources, fire, police, a leaf pickup service, solid waste. And so every time that we approve an annexation, those do bring on additional costs. So we had a really, I think, important conversation around when are the benefits, outweighing the costs of annexation. So certainly we're going to increase our tax base when we see that development. But again, do the benefits outweigh all of the services that we have to provide? And I think I'll be especially interested to hear from Councilmember Patton on this, because she has a lot of areas, outside of her district currently that are, really up for consideration for annexation.
Thank you for providing me with that segue. Councilmember Patton.
Sure, yeah. So as Councilmember Harrison mentioned, there's a big chunk of area in District B that's in this extraterritorial jurisdiction, or the ring out from that is called the urban service area. It's like the next area that we would grow into. And these are agreements that we've made with other municipalities over the course of decades, where we've said, okay, Rollsville, you're going to take this part as you grow, and we're going to take this part as we grow. And so these are long-standing agreements, but we do have to also reckon with the very material and real pragmatics of running and caring for a city. So we want that all of our residents to have access to parks and greenways and sidewalks and uncongested traffic and all those things. And we have to ask ourselves, when is it the right time? And I think there are always trade-offs. One thing I've learned in this job is there is no right answer. There are only trade-offs, right? So if we strain one system in an attempt to ease another, we might create an unintended consequence. And it's a really challenging balancing act. So if we take all this area we said would become Raleigh in time, and we say, actually, we don't want it to become Raleigh, we might be chalking it up to being very large lots that are become very expensive homes, still with a lot of traffic congestion. That could be a trade-off. This is a lot to weigh. And so again, the retreat was really just an introduction to the conversation, and our staff will come back with several options for us and the pros and cons of each, because again, no right answer, only trade-offs.
Councilmember Silver.
Well, I have a long history dealing with both the long-range areas, the extraterritorial jurisdictions. And I just want to inform those that are listening that we have a comprehensive plan that dictates how we're going to grow. And even our charter states that the role of the planning department is to help guide orderly growth. And so one of the challenges that we're facing, for example, we had one request years ago when I was planning director that was 3 miles from our border. 3 miles. And you're driving through county, and then here's this little island of the city of Raleigh. And so, you want orderly growth. And as both Councilmember Harrison and Patton said, it starts to strain some of your services. Yes, there's a tax base, but you usually don't recoup it. If you get, for example, $2,000, annually an acre for low density residential. It may cost you $3,000 to service it. You start extending utility lines. And then once you extend utility lines, you start seeing others that want to tap into that line and grow in places we didn't plan for. The public wants predictability and certainty about how we're going to grow. The council wants predictability and certainty, and the development community should have that predictability and certainty. And so we appreciated the conversation because staff was telling us from police and from fire and utilities, the trade-offs, as Councilmember Patton said, once we extend that far in places we did not expect to grow, and forget about the impact of the school districts, because we said, no, this is our plan. This is where we're going to expect it to grow. And then we start growing in this location. Wait, we didn't look for school sites. We didn't expect growth to happen there. So it is a great conversation. We want to make sure as we plan, people are safe. So public safety, fire protection. So for me, it was a very important conversation. And my guess is staff was looking for definitive direction from council to really start to say or send that message through policy where we should grow and not grow, and start saying no to some of these applications, particularly those that are in places miles away from our boundary, and have those conversations with surrounding municipalities, because we still may have to serve them because we have a regional utility program, but we still may have to serve them police and fire and need to understand the implications. So it was a great conversation with our staff, and all of us weighed in. Both Councilmember Patton and Branch, I think, has the most pressure because that's where you have these larger areas. And so we allowed them the space and time to really speak up, since it's an urgent matter. And even this week, not outside the jurisdiction per se, but you have quite a few annexations that appear reasonable, but this is an important conversation to have. I want to summarize again. People want predictability, they want certainty, and they want orderly growth. That's how you should plan and help build your city. And we want to make sure we stick to that goal.
Well, certainly an important conversation to have. I'm sure the retreat was just starting. This is something that I'm sure will go on well into your tenures on the council. But another important topic that came up was public comments. And Councilmember Patton, I'm going to ask you to start off and describing your thoughts and feelings about what happened at the retreat.
Sure. So, not to sound like a broken record, but the retreat was the beginning of a conversation that has continued in the intervening weeks since that time. And I imagine will also reappear in our conversations this coming Tuesday at the council meeting. So there was a desire to take a look again at the public comment period. There was some commentary from our colleagues that they had gotten feedback on the campaign trail that folks felt closed off from City Hall or scared away because of the long wait times and some graphic nature of some videos that have been shared. And so there were a couple of segments of the conversation. One was around the future of digital media, so what people can play that's broadcast. In the intervening time since the retreat, the council has voted to eliminate digital media. And part of that is because we're regulated by FCC regulations, the Federal Communication Commission. And because we stream the council meetings on Channel 12 and WebEx and YouTube, each of those platforms has different guidelines. And every time we show something that's not in line with those guidelines, we can get dinged and fined. And ultimately, we're paying those fines with the taxpayers' money. So that's where that piece stands. The part that is likely to reemerge at the council table on Tuesday is the length of time allocated. So currently on our evening meeting, the second Tuesday, there's up to 3 hours, and there's these there's a tiered structure. So depending on how many people sign up, you either get 3 minutes, 2 minutes, or 1 minute. This was at the time when it was implemented, meant to add objectivity so that speakers knew how much time they would get. We heard that speakers didn't like showing up to the meeting and finding out in that moment whether they'd have how much time would be allocated. That was a challenge for them. So the tiering system provides that objectivity, and the proposal that is being considered is for a 2 hour length of time, which would probably leave the tiers the tiered structure in place, but shrink the ranges.
Mr. Councilmember Silver, would you please share your thoughts and ideas?
Yeah, as Councilmember Patton said, we had three issues at the table. One was the use of digital media. The other one was the start time of the public comment in the evening session. And then the last one was the length of time of that session. So we kind of addressed the digital media, and I won't repeat what Councilmember Patton said, but also we had a conversation about the start time. After hearing from staff, a survey had shown that close to 3/4 preferred 7 o'clock. So we decided not to move it to 6. But the last one is the one that we're discussing that there's further conversation. And we had an analysis of all the jurisdictions staff presented from how people are handling public comment across the state. And Raleigh's on the end of having actually more than most jurisdictions. And so we looked at it. I think the state law is only required to do up to 30 minutes. And I think we're at currently 4 hours. And so we're looking to potentially take it down an hour. And people saying, wait, don't take away from democracy. It's like, folks, we're way beyond 30 minutes. We're actually 5 times what the state requires. And so the whole question is, we looked at the analysis, and most meetings are under 2 hours. And so the proposals on the table is to continue to allow public comment, not allow the digital media to be advertised to anyone, but be sent directly to council, but to make sure we still offer those times. There's on our other meeting, we allow time to speak, and then the special one, they go from 3 hours to 2 hours, but we certainly want to hear from residents. And so that is something that we want to communicate loud and clear. It's not, people are focusing on the hour that may be taken away. I'm elected to the point that we're 5 times higher than the state requires, which shows that we're a state that wants to lead, and we value public engagement and citizen and public input.
Councilmember Harrison, your thoughts?
Yeah, I think, there has been some, disagreement among the council about this particular, topic of the length of public comment. And in some ways, folks might think it trivial, 2 or 3 hours when we typically do not surpass 2 hours. But for me, the question is, what type of government do we want to lead? As a city council member, my number one priority is community engagement, and I'm really committed to listening to the needs of the people I represent. If public comment is the forum that residents choose, I will be there. So I just feel like we're not doing something else with our time that's a better use of time necessarily. If we shorten the period of time, I'm not going to a different meeting or serving the residents of Raleigh in another way. I'm probably going home and watching Netflix, to be honest. And so I'm okay having that extra hour in place if needed. It is almost never going to be needed, is my guess. It really is only probably going to be needed if there is a issue of, big or huge, really importance to the city. We never know what those are going to be. I think it'll be rare. But at this point, I don't think we're solving anything by limiting the public comment. And I think we are potentially alienating residents who do value that space.
Well, I appreciate all your thoughts. For me, the last big topic at the retreat was affordable housing and the zoning conversation that y'all shared for some time. Councilmember Silver, I'd like to come back to you and let you start this particular topic of conversation, please.
Yes, so you're correct. All of us, we were out there campaigning, and even before, it's the number one issue on everyone's mind. So we appreciated the fact that staff provided an expert to provide a video that went through how you achieve affordable housing or some of the myths around affordable housing. It was not dissimilar to my former boss, the deputy mayor in New York City, who was also commissioner of housing. She came down to Raleigh Forward and Wake Up to share a similar theme. And so after that presentation, we had a conversation. She focused on the entire spectrum of housing, not just affordable housing. If you just focus on affordable, you miss all the other housing that opens up opportunities for people to move here and move up to different housing types which opens up other housing. So I appreciate a conversation that everyone agreed with what she had to say in terms of my colleagues, but it did open up that conversation. And all of us had different perspectives. As a planner and someone who works in this space, I have lots of ideas about how we can approach affordable housing. I've never focused solely on the affordable housing program because to me, there are probably about 15 different approaches to achieve it. We tend to focus on a few. And I think we have an opportunity, if we're truly committed, to use all the options available to provide affordable housing. I'm not going to go through them now. Maybe that's a separate conversation you and I can have, but it's not inconsistent with what the expert, she was a former council member, I believe it was in Arlington, Virginia. Again, people could find the video from Vicky Bean, who presented, I believe it was in December, and it was a masterclass. It was a masterclass, and she was able to respond to questions and really busted all the myths that we often hear about how you create affordable housing. So for me, it was enlightening. I've heard it before, but after that, we had a full conversation about and reacting to that video, as well as what the city of Raleigh is doing with the affordable housing program and everything else they're doing to increase affordable housing here in the city. So I found it very beneficial and a very robust and insightful conversation.
Councilmember Harrison, would you please add your thoughts?
Yeah, I just continue to be so proud of the city and every tool that we have used for affordable housing, whether that's growing our, market housing supply, building LIHTC, so low income housing credit units. So this is some money that we get from the state to build affordable rental units, all the way to helping unhoused folks get access to apartments immediately. We have a new pilot program that has already helped to house 40 individuals that were living in a camp near Dix Park. And so we are doing everything under the sun, in my opinion. If we had more resources, more money, we could do a little more. And I'm always looking for those opportunities. But I'm just incredibly proud of our Housing and Neighborhoods Department. They keep pushing. And I think all of our council is in lockstep on this topic.
Councilmember Patton?
Yeah, I think that's right. I always think about this as a three-legged stool. You need supply, subsidy, and stabilization. And the city is attempting to make progress in all of those. And so previous councils of the past have eliminated parking minimums, adopted there's this acronym we use, the FTDO, the frequent transit development option, which allows you to get a little more units, but provide some rent deed restricted affordable housing units that are not subsidized. So there's a lot of effort being made to enhance the supply, but then subsidy, as Councilmember Harrison mentioned, we're always trying to make our dollars go farther by co-investing in affordable housing opportunities along with the county and the state. And our staff is working on this new revolving loan fund. They're sort of always trying to innovate and figure out new tools to add to the toolbox. And then stabilization, getting people back on their feet and helping people stay in their homes. Our housing director always reminds us that it is much cheaper and more humane to prevent someone's homelessness than it is to manage homelessness. So the Bringing Neighbors Home program essentially helps our unhoused community rent on the private market, just go and get a lease like you and I would. But another step, I think our next frontier that will be heard about in the coming years is rapid intervention. If someone says, I'm worried I'll be evicted in the coming weeks, how can we get them support at that moment in time so they are never evicted at all? Because again, more efficient, more humane, cheaper, and ultimately we want people to be stably housed for 100 reasons.
Well, based on this conversation, it's very clear to me, and I think anyone listening, that this city council retreat is an invaluable exercise where the council and the city management can safely sit down and have a vast discussion on a wide range of topics. With y'all's permission, we're going to do one more round, give you a chance to close if there's any last comments you would like to add to this discussion. And Councilmember Harrison, it's your time to go first, please.
I just want to thank anyone who's watching out there. If you've got questions, please email me, jane.harrison@raleighnc.gov. You can sign up for public comment. You can sign up for a meeting with me. I also have a monthly District D meeting. That's the second Saturday of the month, if I've got that right. It's going to be this Saturday. That is tomorrow at 9:30 a.m. Crowder Center at Lake Johnson Park. So please come out. We have really fun, open-ended conversations, and would love to hear what's on your mind.
Councilmember Patton.
I echo Councilmember Harrison in saying that I want to be accessible to you. My metaphorical door is always open in whichever way is a meaningful way for you to interact with your government and your elected officials. I've got an inbox. I've got social media at Patton for Raleigh on all socials. And I do in-person meetings as well, both one-on-one constituent service and a monthly meeting. But I'll also just say, I hope people watching this find that they've got an engaged council who cares about getting these issues right and cares about good governance. It's a challenging time in our federal and state politics where there's a lot happening all the time and can feel unnerving to folks. But here at the City of Raleigh and the Raleigh City Council, we are going to be the stable, steady presence that you deserve to have in your life. We're going to make sure your roads are paved, your water runs clean, your parks are in good repair. And we hope to do it with some grace and remind you what public service is really all about.
And to close us out, please, Councilmember Silver.
Well, first, I just want to summarize my experience of the retreat and really enjoyed the camaraderie among my colleagues. We're all not going to agree, but to have the space and respect to share a point of view and to figure out a path forward for the citizens and businesses of the city, to me was very refreshing. So I enjoyed it. In terms of reaching out to me, I certainly prefer my Raleigh email address at mitchell.silver@raleignc.gov. Since I have so much social media, I'm getting Facebook messages and Instagram and X and Blue Sky and LinkedIn. And so I scramble to figure out who said what and where, so we can kind of collect, even still my campaign website. I'm available. People know already as they reach out, I want to meet with them. I've already spoke to my colleagues and spoke to staff about these monthly meetings that I want to start as well, so I can hear what residents have to say. So as a new person, certainly I do public engagement as a living, and it's something I thrive on. So I'm excited to find a space and get that started so I can hear from the residents in my district. So I'm here and available. Again, my email address is a great place to reach out. One location where I can respond. And with that, I want to thank you, Robert, for this opportunity. And again, I enjoy being on this platform with my colleagues.
Well, I would like to thank each and every one of you for your time here today and the huge commitment of time and experience that it takes to serve on the council. Raleigh is indeed lucky to have your service. And in closing, I'll close with my tagline: Raleigh, all these city councilors are here for you. All this and more is in your backyard. Thanks, everyone. I really appreciate you spending some time.
Thanks, Robert.